Hi, I'm Miss Becky from the Montgomery County Norristown Public Library, and today I'm going to show you how to make Snickerdoodle Muffins. And Snickerdoodles are cookies that are cinnamon flavored cookies. They're like a butter cookie or vanilla cookie coated with cinnamon sugar, and they're my son-in-law's favorite. And these muffins are supposed to kind of be like the Snickerdoodle cookie, which means that they're filled with cinnamon, so you really have to like cinnamon a lot. Before we start, we're going to make sure our hair is tied back out of our way so that we don't have to keep messing with it, fiddling with it while we're cooking. We want to make sure our hands are clean. We want to make sure we're not wearing any floppy clothing that could get in our way while we're cooking or get caught in anything. We want to make sure that we have no jewelry that's going to fall down our arms or swing out from our necks, or rings that could fall off into what we're cooking. And we want to make sure our work surfaces are clean. If you have hot water and dish soap and a clean dish towel, just clean off your table, your counter, wherever you're going to be working. Now, the next thing is what we're going to need for ingredients and equipment. The ingredients we're going to need are flour, just white all-purpose flour. We're going to need some brown sugar, probably light brown sugar. If you don't have light brown, if you have dark brown, I guess that would be fine. The recipe doesn't really say. My instinct is light brown sugar. We need some cinnamon, lots of cinnamon. We need some baking soda. We need some cream of tartar. Now, cream of tartar may be something you don't normally have in your pantry. Cream of tartar is a byproduct of winemaking, actually, and it's a powder derived from the grapes after they've been squeezed for the wine, and it's an acid, so it helps in creating certain chemical reactions in your food to make bubbles that make things expand and get lighter. So we're using cream of tartar today for that. We have salt, just ordinary table salt is fine. And that's some oil. I have canola oil here, but recipe calls for olive oil, but olive oil, you can often taste it in your baked goods. Plus, it's more expensive, so I use one that doesn't have the taste. Vanilla. I have pure vanilla extract here, which at the moment is very expensive. So if you want to use the imitation vanilla, which is much cheaper, go for it. I just like to use the pure flavor. White vinegar. And you may wonder why vinegar is going into a muffin, and it has to do with the chemical reaction. If you've ever made a volcano with baking soda and vinegar, you know that the two things mixed together cause bubbling up and foaming, and this is the reaction that we're going to have in our batter to make it airy and light. So we've got vinegar, and we're going to have some water as well. And the equipment that you need, you're going to need a mixing bowl, of course, and a whisk, or if you don't have a whisk, you can use a spoon or a fork. Probably a spoon would work better. I always have a spoon to spoon my flour out of the container into my measuring cups. And the measuring cups you need are a 1 cup measure, a 1/2 cup measure, and a 1/4 cup measure. And then you're going to need measuring spoons. Need a whole need a whole teaspoon, a 1/2 teaspoon, and a 1/4 teaspoon. And you will need a liquid measure, and this is for your water and your oil. You should always use these kind of cups for things that aren't liquid, solid or powders, and you should always use this for liquids like water, milk, oil, because the measurement is slightly different. not terribly different, and the world won't end if you end up using this to measure your liquid ingredients, but it's always better to use those. Plus it pours easier. And you're going to need a muffin tin. This one happens to be a 12-cup one. You may have a 6-cup. Whatever you have is fine. If you have the baking papers that go into the cups, that's helpful. If you don't have those, then just put a little oil in there and, you know, rub it up around the sides and across the bottom, or use baking spray and spray the cups. And that is what you need, and now we will get started. So I'm setting my oven to 350 degrees, and now it's preheating. So we'll start with our mixing bowl. We're going to measure 1 1/2 cups of flour. So we have our 1 cup measure and a 1/2 cup measure. And I have my spoon that I like to use to spoon out my flour. Okay, so I like to start by fluffing up the flour. Trying to loosen it up a little bit so it's not so packed down. And because when you pack down the flour, you're actually adding more flour to your recipe than what it's called for. You want your flour to be nice and light and fluffy. So then once you get it all stirred up, then you get your measuring cup and you sprinkle it in there. You don't want to pack it down. You want it to stay nice and light and fluffed up. And you want to fill your cup all the way to the top. Kind of overfill. And then you get something with a straight edge. And break it till your cup is level. And see, it's filled to the top and it's level. I'll put that in my measuring, or in my mixing bowl. Now you need a 1/2 cup. So 1 is already in there. So now I'm going to do a second one. Fluffy flour. Fluffy flour. Extra on there. And just level it off. Try not to push it down when you're leveling. I'm just trying to fill in the little holes on the edge. Okay, flat. Dump it in the bowl. Okay, we're done with the flour. Now we need 3/4 cups of brown sugar, not packed. Most recipes will tell you to pack down the sugar when you're measuring it out. But this time, we're not doing that. So I'm just gonna, and you need 3/4 cups, so there's no such thing as a 3/4 cup measure. So you can do one of two things. You can measure 3 1/4 cups to make your 3/4, or you can do 1/2, which is actually equal to 2/4 plus 1/4, which will give you 3/4. So I'm going to do the 1/2 plus 1/4 to make 3/4. I'm going to do kind of the same thing with the brown sugar, is kind of get it loosened up because it gets packed down in there. Loosen it up a bit and then kind of sprinkle it into my cup. Okay, just fill in your holes. Do the same thing, you're gonna scrape off. Ah! Get up there. Scrape it off. Meh, just totally missed the bag. Okay, so that's 1/2 or 2/4. And then we're going to do one more. Lift it up. I'm going to do the little 1/4 cup. Let's see what I'm doing here. Level it out. Okay, put that in. Try to be as precise as you can with your measuring. Because, like I said before, successful baking relies on certain chemical reactions and interactions between ingredients. And if you don't have the right levels of ingredients, you're going to have trouble. So now we need 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Where'd my teaspoon go? Oh, right in front of me here. So you're just gonna dip it in, level it off. Make sure your spoons are filled to the top as well. Getting everything all over everything. Okay. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now we need a teaspoon of baking soda. So I'm just going to wipe this off. And get my baking soda. And I'm just going to dip down into the box here. With my spoon. Get it heaped up and then scrape it on that piece of cardboard right there on the inside of the box to make it level. So there's my teaspoon of baking soda. My 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. It's the 1/2 teaspoon. I'm just going to level this off with my finger. This is very light and fluffy. Cream of tartar. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. This is just regular table salt. You can use kosher salt if you want. Oop, I overdid. I don't want that. I'm going to level that off a little bit. Okay, that's better. In goes the salt. And we're going to take our whisk. If you don't have a whisk, you can use a fork or a spoon. We're just going to of water, and we are going to mix all of these things together until it's nice and smooth, nice smooth batter. Okay, so we got it all mixed up, and as you can see, maybe you can see the bubbles coming up in there, maybe, and that is the acid in the cream of tartar and the baking soda and the vinegar all mixing together and doing this great chemical reaction. So now we need to get our muffin pan and muffin papers if you got them. Put them in there, and like I said, if you don't have these, just grease the pans with oil all around the sides and the bottom. Okay, so I have my cups in there. I like to use a ladle when I'm spooning out batter for muffins or cupcakes, because it seems a little bit easier to control. So I'm going to fill these about 2/3 full. Yeah, this is very runny batter, but I promise you it will cake up when it bakes. So I'm just going to fill all of these. Try not to drip all over the outsides. And then we'll get ready to put them in the oven. There we go. Ready to go into the oven. So I'm going to set my timer for 18 minutes because the recipe says to bake them for 18 to 22. So you always start with the smallest amount of time, just in case your oven runs a little hot. Your muffins might get done sooner, or if yours isn't as hot, you might need more time to get them done. So we'll come back in 18 minutes and see what's what. I don't remember if I mentioned when I was mentioning ingredients that you're going to need a little white sugar as well. You're going to need 1.5 teaspoons of white sugar, and this is for the topping after the muffins are baked. So there's our 1, and then our half. And we want it level. And then we want 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And then we're going to mix. Make sure that's level. It's alright if you just tap it off. Sometimes that's the quickest thing to do. But when you're measuring bigger things, you should always level it. So you're just going to mix that up together till it's well combined. Again, sort of shake it around a little bit. I got a few little sugar nuggets in there from the humidity. The sugar sticks together a bit. So what's going to happen when our muffins are done and cool, they're going to get a little damp and sticky on top, and we're going to dip each one into this sugar cinnamon mixture to make it more like Snickerdoodle cookie. And while you're waiting for things to bake, it's always a good idea to clean up your work surface, your workstation, while you're waiting. And then you don't have to do it later. And it's done when your muffins are ready and you're ready to eat them. Okay, our muffins have been in for 18 minutes. I'm going to give it a look-see and get a blast of steam in my face. Okay. I'm going to take a look. And you're supposed to be able to put a toothpick in the center and have it come out clean. Nothing else sticking on it. It's fine. Sometimes you can touch, and if they spring back and don't leave a dent, then that means they are finished. Shut my oven off. And we have to leave them cool until the tops are sticky. Okay, now we have our finished muffins. And they don't look particularly sticky on the top, but I'm going to stick it in and see what happens. Alright, well, the sugar's sticking well enough. So I think we're good. So we'll just keep dipping those. It doesn't seem like there's enough sugar mix here for all of the muffins, but we'll check it out. If the topping doesn't stick, you can just, brush a little water on with your finger and see if that helps. Yeah, it's sticking all right. So we'll do the rest of these and then we'll give it a taste test. So there ended up being more than enough sugar mix for the top of these. And I even ended up sprinkling some on. I wouldn't worry too much. They didn't seem to be very sticky, but sugar is hygroscopic, which means that it attracts moisture. So if you let these sit out in the humid kitchen, in the humid air, that will eventually get sticky and stick fast. But it seems to be okay right now. So here's our Snickerdoodle muffin. And now the moment of truth. To see how it does it with our taste test. Ooh, they're very light. Very cinnamony. These muffins actually turned out very light and very airy, and which is nice because most of the time when you eat a muffin, you kind of expect it to be dense and heavy, and this is almost like a sponge cake or something, which is funny because this is a cake that muffin was made with no eggs. So the chemical reaction of the baking soda, the cream of tartar, and the vinegar is what made it so light inside. Put the air holes in and made it lift. So it's more like a cake than a muffin, and it's really tasty. Enjoy.